This is Mac OS Ken.
Positive reviews for iPhone 14 Plus. European courts demand less of Apple's money. And I want to tell you about a friend of mine. It is Friday, the 7th of October, 2022. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Ladder. Smart, dynamic term life insurance. Learn more at ladderlife.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. If you're getting an iPhone 14 Plus, you're apparently getting a great, big, solid phone. Bigger phone, smaller price seems to be the theme of the reviews that I spotted. Going over some of the headlines, CNBC says the iPhone 14 Plus wins on battery life and screen size and is $200 cheaper than the Pro Max. From CNET, iPhone 14 Plus review, if you just want a huge screen, here's your upgrade. A big iPhone without the big price tag, says CNET. The Wall Street Journal, iPhone 14 Plus review, big screen, big battery, not as big price. The Journal's Joanna Stern says the iPhone 14 Plus arrives a few weeks behind Apple's other new phones. It's the best option for those looking for a big phone with long battery life that's a little lighter on frills. Engadget, Apple iPhone 14 Plus review, it's an iPhone, but bigger. Starting at $899, says Engadget, the iPhone 14 Plus neatly fills the gap between the standard iPhone 14 and the pricier Pro line. And a headline from The Verge, Apple iPhone 14 Plus review, a big deal. Excellent battery life and a large display make the 14 Plus upgrade-worthy, according to the site. So now I want an iPhone 14 Plus and an iPhone 14 Pro Max. Please don't tell my iPhone 13 I said that. With Apple's bigger little phone hitting the first round of countries today, the Cupertino company has let the world in on where it's going next. iDownload blog runs down who's getting what and when. According to the piece, more than 30 countries are getting the Plus today, including the usual day one suspects like Australia, Canada, China, many countries in Europe, the UK, and the US. Take a week to breathe, and a smaller round 2 is set for next Friday, the 14th of October. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 countries get the phone then. Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey among them. Take a couple of weeks to catch your breath, and a still smaller round gets its hands on iPhone 14 Plus. iDownload blog lists but 3 countries picking up the phone on Friday, the 28th of October, those being Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. Don't let new iPhone Day Part 2 excite you. A glance at the financial pages tells you there is always reason to worry. Seeking Alpha writes up a note from UBS analyst David Vogt. The piece has the analyst indicating that wait times for the new iPhone 14 product line have eased, indicating flattish year-over-year growth for the September quarter. It's kind of a strange assertion. We're into the December quarter. Assuming he's right about easing wait times, there was nothing easy about waits for the iPhone 14 Pros to round out last quarter, and that was with an extra week of availability. The problem may be the mix. Citing numbers from his firm's Evidence Lab, Seeking Alpha says Vogt said the data shows Apple's high-end iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max have seen elevated wait times relative to last year, but the lower-end iPhone 14 is readily available, and wait times for the iPhone 14 Plus, out today, are at roughly 7 to 8 days across most regions. While a number of analysts think revenue for the Pro phones will make up for weakness on the consumer end, Vogt is not convinced. He thinks everything the 14 Pros had going for them at the end of September is likely to be offset by continued strength in the US dollar, according to Seeking Alpha. Unfun as all that sounds, Vogt is still really into Apple. He's got a buy rating on the company's shares and a price target of $185. Apple's had a fine in France lowered by a lot, though not enough for the Cupertino company. A piece from Mac Rumors says a hexagonal appeals court cut a fine for alleged anti-competitive behavior from 1.1 billion euros to 372 million. According to the report, French antitrust regulators fined Apple in early 2020 for setting prices on Apple gear with authorized resellers so high that the prices the resellers charged ended up close to the prices Apple charged consumers itself. According to Mac Rumors, the fine was reduced after the appeals court dropped one of the three main charges related to price-fixing allegations and significantly lowered the rate applied to calculate the overall fine. While Apple may like the idea of paying about a third of the original 1.1 billion euros, what it really wants to pay is nothing. A piece from Barron says that is still the way the Cupertino company is aiming. The site quotes Apple as saying, while the court correctly reversed part of the French Competition Authority's decision, we believe it should be overturned in full and plan to appeal. The decision relates to practices from more than a decade ago that even the French Competition Authority recognized are no longer in use. Something Apple may be thinking, why can't France be more like Italy? A piece from Mac Rumors earlier this week says an Italian court has drop-kicked a 173 million euro fine against both Apple and Amazon, again for alleged anti-competitive behavior. Boiling it way down, the two companies were fined late last year for working together to limit which third-party sellers could sell Beats products on Amazon's Italian site. Antitrust authorities there said the limitations were meant to stifle competition and keep prices high, according to the report. No word in the piece on why the court killed the fine, just that it did. Amazon is said to have welcomed the ruling. Apple and Italian regulators offered no comment. More news in a moment, but first a word from Ladder. Smart, dynamic term life insurance. It is not fun to think about not being there for your loved ones. I mean, outside of the tragedy, there's also all the stuff for which they count on you. Paying the mortgage, covering college costs. You may not do that all by yourself, but do you want to leave your family with no help? It may not be fun, but if you need it, you really don't want to put off setting up term coverage life insurance. That's why today is the day to choose life insurance through Ladder. Ladder is 100% digital. No doctors, no needles, no paperwork when you apply for $3 million in coverage or less. Just answer a few questions about your health in an application that will take you less time than you will spend listening to today's show. You just need a few minutes and a phone or a laptop to apply. Ladder's smart algorithms work in real time, so you'll find out if you are instantly approved. There's always going to be a reason to put this off. The reasons to not put it off are more important. So, go to ladderlife.com/macOSKen today to see if you are instantly approved. That's LADDER life.com/macOSKen. ladderlife.com/macOSKen. Apple may have serious competition come Oscar season, coming from Apple itself. The company is making the Antoine Fuqua, Will Smith historical drama Emancipation Oscar eligible. Now it seems to be doing the same with Causeway. and it's got at least one nomination written all over it. According to Apple's press release about the film, Causeway tells the story of a military engineer who has returned to the States from Afghanistan with a debilitating brain injury after an IED explosion. But she's not just dealing with the trauma of war. Back in her hometown of New Orleans, she also has to confront memories of a traumatic childhood. She finds a new, supportive friend, though, an auto mechanic who's dealing with trauma of his own. Brian Tyree Henry plays the mechanic. You know him from the TV series Atlanta, as well as the films If Beale Street Could Talk, Marvel's The Eternals, and Godzilla vs. Kong. The returning vet is played by Academy Award winner Jennifer Lawrence, and there, I would be willing to bet, is a practically guaranteed Oscar nomination. Not just because it's her, because I've seen the trailer. Causeway hits Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 4th of November. It starts a limited theatrical run on the same day, a requirement for Oscar eligibility. The trailer makes the film look tough, but touching. You can catch the trailer on YouTube. Finally today, there is a pretty good chance that this is not going to mean anything to anybody who hears it, but I want to say it publicly and out loud. Mark Burnette has retired. Mark spent 45 years in TV, 26 of them directing the news and live programming at KRON 4 in San Francisco. I worked with Mark there when I was producing The Rob Black Show from 2005 to 2008. What I told Mark on LinkedIn was that a lot of people made me feel like I had no place in that control room. I suspect they were right, but they were also the people who put me there, and that is another story. Mark was not one of those people. I know I frustrated him because I had no idea what I was doing when I started. No matter how little I knew and how badly I screwed up, and yeah, I nearly left us with dead air more than once. Not only did Mark never let me fall, he never treated me like I didn't belong there. In addition to being a TV guy, Mark is a pilot and a flight instructor, so I could panic. He could handle it. We were friends when we worked together. We've lost touch over the years, but what Mark gave me was invaluable. Everybody should be that lucky. If I ever get the chance, I hope that I am as cool-headed, helpful, and genuine to others as Mark was to me. Fair skies and tailwinds, Mr. Burnette, and I can never thank you enough. Today on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast, there is a growing argument that Apple's A16 processor should have been called A15 Plus or something. At the same time, a former Apple exec argues that Apple is no longer innovating, replacing the truly new with boredom and a side of fear. TMO managing editor Jeff Butts joins me to talk over both of those issues on the latest Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer. Find it online at macobserver.com or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Ladder. Smart, dynamic term life insurance. Learn more at ladderlife.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.